Part 1. Let's start with a simple question. Hi there, I want to ask you a question. Really think about this. If you had to harm a stranger, what would you do? Is it easy to answer, or does it make you uncomfortable to even think about it? Maybe you're saying, "No way, I would never do that." That's a very natural response. But what would stop you? Your conscience? Fear? Or maybe you just don't know the person well enough. Back in 1961, a psychologist named Stanley Milgram at Yale University was wrestling with the exact same question. The world was still recovering from the Second World War, and everyone was asking, how could ordinary people, silencing their conscience, commit such terrible acts? Part 2. Stepping into that famous experiment room. Now, imagine stepping into that famous experiment room. You're told, we're testing learning and memory. You will ask the learner questions, and every time they answer wrong, you'll give them an electric shock. But the learner is actually an actor, and there are no real shocks. As you press the button, the learner screams in pain, begs you to stop. Now, stop and think. What would you do? Would you say, stop right away? Or would you keep going because the authority figure insists, keep going? Part 3. The power of authority versus your conscience. There's a third person in the room. A serious, lab coat-wearing authority figure. The experiment, he says, you must continue. You don't have a choice. At that moment, your conscience battles with the voice of authority. Your heart races, your hands sweat, you hesitate, but rejecting authority isn't easy. Did you know that in Milgram's experiment, about 65% of participants went all the way to the highest voltage shock? Most people obeyed, even against their conscience. Part 4. But why? Let's explore why. Why do people obey so strongly? Some say, it's not my responsibility, it's the authorities. Others say, I'm doing this for science, it's important. But the truth is, people sometimes hand over their responsibility to others, and that can lead to terrifying consequences. Part 5. Write your own story. Now, imagine in your daily life, a boss, teacher, or family member asks you to do something wrong. What would you do? Would you say yes immediately, or would you pause and think first? This is a moment we all might face. The biggest lesson from Milgram's experiment is this: obeying is easy, but following your conscience takes courage. Part 6. Ethical debates and the experiment's impact. When Milgram's experiment was published, it sparked major debates. Because participants were put under serious psychological stress, some were deeply affected afterward. Nowadays, such experiments wouldn't pass ethical review, but the lessons Milgram gave us are still invaluable. Part 7. Obedience and responsibility. In life, especially at work or in social relationships, submitting to authority is common. But that doesn't mean we should become accomplices to wrongdoing. We must take responsibility, question orders, and say stop when needed. History has shown the terrible cost of blind obedience. Part 8. The dark and bright sides of human nature. Milgram's experiment reveals the complex face of human nature. We have the capacity for kindness, but also the potential to do harm under pressure. Maybe the most important question is, if you were there, would you choose the light inside you? Part 9. Obedience. Today, even today, pressures from social media, workplaces, or society affect how we behave. But remember, true strength is standing up for your values. It takes courage to listen to your conscience instead of blindly obeying authority. Part 10. It's your choice now. One last question for you. If you were the teacher in Milgram's experiment, how would you act at the hardest moment? Think about that. Because real life offers us similar choices every day, and these choices define who we are. Part 11. The ripple effect. How your choices influence others. Think about this for a moment. Every choice you make, especially in difficult situations, sends ripples out into the world. When you choose to question authority or stand up for what's right, you don't just change your own path. You inspire others to do the same. Even small acts of courage can grow into movements. Imagine if more people had said no during Milgram's experiment. How different would history be? Your choices don't happen in isolation. They affect your family, friends, co-workers, even strangers you'll never meet. Part 12. What can we learn from Milgram today? So, what does all this mean for us living in the 21st century? The truth is, the world is still full of authorities, bosses, governments, social pressures, asking us to obey. But Milgram's study reminds us to always pause and ask, is this right? Am I responsible for this? In a world flooded with information and pressure, learning to trust your own moral compass is more important than ever. It's not always easy, but it's necessary. Part 13. Your invitation to courage now. I want to leave you with an invitation, not just to think about Milgram's experiment, but to apply its lessons in your life. Next time you face a tough choice, remember this. Courage, ISNT, the absence of fear. It's moving forward despite it. So the question isn't just what would you do, but what will you choose to do? Because your answer can make all the difference. If you found this journey into the Milgram experiment thought-provoking, I'd love for you to join our community. Subscribe to PsyEra, where we explore fascinating stories from psychology, human behavior, and the mysteries of the mind together. Let's keep asking the big questions and learning from each other. See you there.